Welcome to the New York State Integrated Pest Management course on management alternatives for controlling flies on cattle. As of 2023, farmers in New York State raise over 1.5 million heads of cattle for both beef and dairy, comprising over half of the state's agricultural production. The open working landscape of the state is characterized by dairy and beef farming. The presence of pest flies of the barn and pasture impact the health and productivity of the cattle and are a nuisance and possibly a safety concern to the farmer. The flies irritate the animals, disrupting their feeding and resting patterns. Irritated cattle are more difficult to manage, and accidents leading to human injury could become more common with higher fly pressure. The stress and the physical discomfort caused by fly infestations also have indirect effects on productivity, causing reduced weight gain, slower growth rates, and decreased milk production in the case of dairy cows. Furthermore, fly bites can lead to skin lesions, open wounds, and even blood loss. They increase the risk of transmitting diseases among separate cattle herds, leading to decreased overall cattle welfare and potential economic losses. We have two kinds of management zones when it comes to flies on cattle. The first is flies in the barn and around facilities. Flies in the barn include house and stable flies. The second management zone is the pasture. Our primary flies of concern here are horn, face, and stable flies. There are certain pastures that may have horse and deer fly issues as well. On this slide, you can see all the life stages of house flies. They are non-biting insects that live in undisturbed, moist organic matter and overwinter as larvae or in their pupal stage. Stable flies, however, do bite. They live in similar habitats to house flies, as well as in soil-concrete interfaces around the farm. When assessing population levels, count the number of flies on the legs of 15 cows and consider implementing control strategies if you find over 10 flies per cow. House and stable flies lay their eggs in moist but not super wet organic materials. The foundation of barnfly IPM is sanitation, removing environments where flies can lay eggs and hatch a new generation. Changes in workplace culture can effectively cut off the fly's life cycle. Ideal breeding grounds for house and stable flies include manure, spilled feed, moist straw bedding, moist old hay, and old silage or haylage. Just about any decomposing, moist organic matter will be good habitat for house and stable flies. Remember, your primary IPM tactic for controlling flies in and around the barns is cleaning out and removing the organic matter that allows flies to breed. Calf barns, or hutches, are prime locations for fly breeding for all the reasons we just mentioned. All of the areas pictured on this slide are also conducive habitat for pest fly breeding. As we mentioned earlier, stable flies breed in similar habitats to house flies, but can also breed in other locations off-farm. Their typical breeding sites include undisturbed areas that contain wet straw, manure, spilled feed, and decaying silage. In addition, they can be found developing in grass clippings, poorly managed compost piles, at the base of damp round bales, and vegetation washed up on lake shores. In other words, in any location with damp, decaying organic matter. Pictured here is a small area where grain has fallen onto a concrete slab. There are about 60 to 70 maggots that will pupate and turn into flies in just this one trowelful of moist, decaying organic matter. In pastures, the main flies of concern are hornfly, facefly, and stablefly. While stableflies breed in any decomposing moist organic matter, horn and faced flies will only lay eggs in fresh manure pats in the pasture. Horn and faced flies will lay eggs between seconds up to a few minutes following excretion. Deer and horse flies generally breed off the farm and migrate in as adults and can be an issue in certain pastures. Female face flies will feed on an animal in order to get protein for eggs, while the males are nectar feeders. Face flies are not easy to control because the cattle's faces are a difficult area to treat, and because the fly's feeding activity is intermittent. They are equally attracted to adult cattle as well as calves. Only a small number of face flies will be found on an animal during any given time, because most of the time the fly will be resting on plants, fence posts, and other objects in the area. Horn flies tend to spend all of their time on the animals, except when females go off animal to lay eggs in fresh cow droppings. Both males and females bite and will feed on blood. Large populations may cause 10 or 20% loss in milk production. Pastures with intact manure pats can produce a lot of flies. This video shows a manure pat with a lot of fly maggots. Tabanids, or horse and deer flies, do not breed on farm, but migrate in from their breeding grounds along streams. They're only occasionally present on cattle farms, but they have a very painful bite when seeking a blood meal. An integrated approach to managing all of these fly pests has many components. In this course, we will cover mechanical and biological control of these pests. For more information on all of the aspects of barn and pasture fly management, please refer to the Barn Fly IPM and Pasture Fly IPM courses on the Pesticide Safety Education Program site. Mechanical control, including the traps we'll cover here, has several advantages over chemical pesticides. First and foremost, mechanical control is safer for cattle, humans, and environmental health. Unlike pesticides, which carry risks of exposure and potential toxicity to both cattle and the surrounding ecosystem, these methods pose minimal risk. They involve physical barriers, traps, and other non-toxic measures that target flies directly without introducing harmful chemicals into the environment. Mechanical control can be used in combination with other strategies to enhance effectiveness, whereas insecticides have maximum application limits. You can deploy multiple traps simultaneously according to your specific pest pressures and improve overall outcomes. They also avoid the issue of insecticide resistance. Over time, flies in the region are developing resistance to certain active ingredients, rendering them less effective when severe infestations come up. Fewer new active ingredients are being developed, so we need to be good custodians of the chemistry that we have. Currently, all farms across New York State have house flies that are resistant to many different insecticide active ingredients. Using an IPM approach is becoming a requirement as many insecticides are no longer controlling the pest. Prioritizing mechanical control methods and reducing reliance on chemical pesticides minimizes the chances of developing resistant superfly populations. Okay, let's talk traps. There are many kinds of traps. We'll break them down into those that are used in and around the barn and those that are used in pastures. We'll start with the traps that can be placed in or around the barn. The Pro Series Spiderweb Fly Glue Trap, also known as Giant Glue Trap, has shown in research studies in New York State that, when used in combination with other IPM tactics, it can significantly reduce housefly populations in calf greenhouses and other barns. These glue traps are normally placed in the rafters over the cattle in the barn. While the trap is about 20 feet long, you'll only pull out 5 feet at a time. When that area on the trap is full, you can roll out fresh fly paper. You will want to place multiple traps around the barn. This trap uses 2 methods to catch flies. 1. The trap has an odor that is attractive to houseflies. 2. Drawings of flies, since flies are attracted to others. In a 2019 demonstration, we counted the number of flies caught on each of 4 of these giant glue traps. The results ranged from 150,000 to nearly 1 million flies caught. The Olson biting fly trap catches stable flies around the barn or outside the barn in areas you want to monitor for stable flies. This trap reflects a certain spectrum of blue wavelength light that is attractive to stable flies. When there are a lot of stable flies in and around the barns, these traps can fill up rather quickly. We caught up to 950,000 flies over the course of a summer in 2019 on one trap. That's almost 1 million flies that were not able to breed on the farm. Deploying several of these around the barns will help in controlling stable flies. Nightstick is also a stable fly trap. Like the previous trap, the flies are attracted to the black and white contrast and get stuck on the trap. Over the course of a summer, this trap caught up to 250,000 flies. The nightstick might be even more effective if there were more surface area, because the number of flies caught per square inch was as high as 25. Sticky fly tape has proven to be effective. Observation of fly behavior reveals a preference for landing on slender surfaces, such as wires or fencing. The string is strategically stretched across the rafters above the cattle. When a fly lands on it, it becomes stuck. In a demonstration, we observed that this trap catches about 50 flies per foot and has the capacity to capture up to 100 flies per foot per week in sections of the barn with higher fly activity. Small glue fly traps are commonly known and have been used for a long time to help control houseflies in many different buildings, including in a barn. We have found that they can be used in areas in a barn where the flies are already attracted. Please note that all of these traps only really work well when you are using all the other IPM tools like sanitation and removing moist organic matter where flies breed. Fans and ventilation can help with fly control. Fans help keep flies off the cattle and calves and keep areas dry to prevent egg laying in moist materials. Good air circulation has other benefits, keeping both cattle and humans comfortable. It is important to keep the screens clean and well maintained so that they do not become points of entry for more flies or habitat for birds. Straw is often used as bedding for cattle to rest in, but when combined with manure, feed, and moisture, it is prime location for fly development. Sand, wood shavings, or wood chips are better alternatives. Whatever bedding you use, keep it fresh, dry, and clean. Periodically tossing with a pitchfork and adding more material can help. Let's move on to fly traps in the pasture. This will focus on face, horn, and stable flies. We will also discuss traps that control horse and deer flies. Bruce Walkthrough Trap was developed by Willis G. Bruce, working for the USDA in the mid-1930s before insecticides became the main means of controlling horn flies. This trap is designed to capture horn flies as the cattle come back to the barns. Horn flies do not like enclosed spaces, and as the cattle enter the trap, the horn flies fly off the cattle. There are a few elements of the trap. As cows are walking through, the flies are brushed off by strips of old carpet or canvas. The flies will then try to escape by moving towards the light. The double screen walls act like a fish trap, allowing the flies through narrow openings in the first layer, but not allowing them to escape. Some data suggest that this trap can control 50 to 70% of horn flies over time. The cow vac is similar to the Bruce trap, removing flies as cattle walk through on their way in from the pasture. The right side of the cow vac blows air across the animal, dislodging the horn flies from the cow. The left side sucks them up with a high-powered vacuum as they are dislodged. This trap can reduce horn fly populations on a farm by 68%. As you can see, the cows emerge mostly horn fly free. For farms that have a significant population of horse and deer flies, the Horsepal, H-trap, and Epstrap are effective management tools. These species of fly are often a problem near streams and wet areas, or by the tree line where cattle go for shade. Horse and deer flies have a very painful bite and can cause cattle extreme irritation. Talking with farmers who have used these products, there is a consensus that they work to manage these flies. The Epstrap catches horse and deer flies as well as some stable flies. The large black structure is attractive to the flies. They fly towards the trap at high speeds, aiming to go through the light space in the middle. While it appears open, there are deflectors that knock the fly into a soapy water solution, killing it. The Horsepal trap catches mostly horse and deer flies, but will also catch some stable flies. These traps should be placed out in the open in areas with high populations of these flies. The flies target the black ball under the trap as something to investigate. The flies land on the ball, find there is no blood, then fly straight up into the trap and get caught in the inverted cone. The flies will die in the jar above. Like the Horsepal, the H-trap is also for catching horse and deer flies, which are attracted to the ball and then get caught in the jar on top. There are other forms of mechanical control of horn and face flies on pastures beyond traps. Disrupting their breeding habitat through dragging of harrow is one. Attaching some kind of harrow or chain to the back of a four-wheel ATV or tractor and dragging it will thin and spread out fresh manure pats. Horn and face flies only lay eggs in fresh manure pats. If the pat is spread out, it will dry and the eggs and larvae cannot develop. This would work well in a rotational grazing system where a producer might not have to spend all that much time to drag a paddock. The drawback to the strategy is that it is labor intensive. Next, we'll move from traps and mechanical control to biological control. A healthy farm ecosystem is one which includes other species which control pests through predation and competition. Chickens can contribute to fly control in rotational grazing systems. Chickens should be moved into paddocks about 4 days after cattle are moved out. This allows dung beetles time to get in and out of the manure pats. Chickens will pick through the pats looking for maggots and pupa to feed on, directly reducing fly populations, as well as spreading and drying the manure, which eliminates the breeding ground. While this is an effective and sustainable tool for fly control, poultry management does add more work to farming operations. Wild birds can also be an ally in controlling flies around the farm. Barn swallows and purple martins eat large numbers of flies through the breeding season. Creating a healthy environment for birds, including installing and maintaining nesting boxes, can help control fly populations. One type of natural predator of fly pests is parasitoid wasps, which may already be present on farms where chemical insecticide is not in use. To boost their impact, additional parasitoids can be purchased and released. By strategically releasing specific parasitoids in barn areas, the wasps act like smart bombs and find stable and housefly pupa. Cornell has identified 2 species which are effective at controlling house and stable flies when deployed along with other IPM tactics in and around livestock facilities. Mucidophurax raptor and Mucidophurax raptorellus are wasps that are very small, only 1 to 3 millimeters in length, and purple-black in color. They sting only fly pupa and never humans. The wasp actively searches out fly pupa. Then, using its ovipositor, the parasitoid will pierce the pupa and lay its eggs. Mucidophurax raptor lays a single egg, while M. raptorellus lays up to 8 eggs in each pupa. The egg will hatch, and the larva will feed on the living but paralyzed fly pupa inside the fly puparium. Farmers can acquire these beneficial parasitoids for weekly releases through IPM Labs in Locke, New York. This approach ensures a targeted and sustainable method of fly pest management on farms. For more comprehensive insight into parasitoids targeting house and stable flies in and around barns, we invite you to explore the following website for further details. Dung beetles are important insects for pasture ecology and soil health. They move manure into the soil, increasing organic matter, improving soil structure, increasing water infiltration, and providing essential nutrients for grass growth. As the majority of cow-calf and stocker operations are pasture-based, and with the increased interest in finishing beef on grass and in grass-based dairies, there has been renewed interest surrounding the importance of dung beetles in pasture ecology. There are hundreds of organisms that call manure pat home. Some organisms are not beneficial, but many of them are. Dung beetles are in the scarab beetle family and are known for their digging abilities. Dung beetles exist everywhere that there is fecal matter. The beetles are attracted by the smell and can find a new cow pat within seconds. Dung beetle adults can fly and, depending on the species, they fly at night or during the day. An interesting fact is that certain species of dung beetles prefer certain kinds of manure. There are about 90 species of dung beetle in North America. We have found 16 species of dung beetles in cattle pastures across New York State. These beetles compete with flies for the manure. If the beetles recycle a manure pat more quickly, then the flies will not have time for their life cycle to complete. We have two categories of dung beetles in cattle pastures. Most dung beetles found in New York pastures are dwellers or endocoprids. Most of these species are very small. They range from 3 to 10 millimeters. Onthophagene species are tunnelers, also known as paracoprids, which consume the manure and burrow beneath it to bury brood balls. This group of nesting dung beetles rely on both male and female beetles to bury those brood balls and feed their young. The final category of dung beetles is comprised of rollers, also known as thylacoprids. Despite not yet being encountered in our studies in New York State cattle pastures, rollers represent another significant group of dung beetles in North America. Roller species demonstrate an interesting behavior by meticulously sculpting balls of manure, then methodically rolling them away from the pat to form brood balls. Within this insect group, characterized by their nesting tendencies, both male and female beetles collaborate in the crucial task of burying these brood balls to sustain their offspring. Notably, these beetles thrive in environments with warmer climates, where their cooperative efforts in nest building and brood ball burial are most effective, ensuring the successful development of their young amidst favorable conditions. Tunnelers and dwellers exhibit remarkable efficiency in rapidly recycling organic matter. In contrast, rollers are comparatively less effective. Nonetheless, when all these dung beetle groups collaborate on processing the same manure pat simultaneously, their combined effort can lead to its complete disappearance within a mere 36 to 48 hours. For more information on the species of dung beetles found on cattle pastures in New York State, you can visit the web page linked here. Numerous organisms inhabit a manure pat, among which 3 beetle families stand out as predators of fly maggots: the rove beetle, water beetle, and hister beetle. The rove beetle is a versatile predator found in various habitats, while certain species of water beetles specialize in cattle manure pats. Their larvae prey on fly maggots and other small insects. Similarly, the hister beetle is another predatory species that thrives in the manure environment, feeding on maggots. This course is now completed. Please take the post test and receive your pesticide recertification credits.